Hey, what's going on, folks? We have a new show for you today. The Washington Post put out a quote-unquote exclusive report saying FBI searched Trump's home to look for nuclear documents and other items, sources say. So that's the story. They're claiming that Trump had nuclear documents that were probably classified. And Trump has since come out and said that he said nuclear weapons issue is a hoax, just like Russia was a hoax, 2 impeachments were a hoax, the Mueller investigation was a hoax, and much more. I'll be reading that full statement in my best Trump voice. Hopefully you enjoy that. The CDC is also apparently easing a lot of guidelines. New York Times reported CDC eases COVID guidelines, noting virus is here to stay. And according to New York Times, I quote, "And the recommended prevention strategies no longer draw a distinction between people who are up to date on their vaccinations and those who are not, streamlining a complicated set of rules that could be difficult for schools and businesses to navigate." One person who's going to have a lot of difficulty with this is Washington Post reporter Taylor Lorenz, who says, literally, what is the plan for high-risk, mentally vulnerable, and disabled people? Just let us die while the whole world marches on? Like, WTF. Yikes. And when it comes to yesterday's shenanigans, Ben Shapiro said, after days of silence, Merrick Garland, he says, ordered the code red and lectures us on distrust of the FBI. 5 minutes later, we get leaks to the New York Times about the contents of the warrant. None of this is about trust building. Media says that Donald Trump doesn't want to release the warrant, but Lauren Boebert says, release the warrant. We'll talk about people's reactions to how upset the FBI and the Attorney General is about people distrusting and talking bad about the FBI. Pretty wild stuff. It's going to be a great show. Show starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles, yeah.
Hey, what's going on, folks? I'm going to read the Washington Post report accusing Trump, basically, or, exclusive reporting, whatever, anonymous sources. We'll get into that. I'll read Trump's response. But before we do that, I think I figured it out. And obviously, this is just my guess. I don't know for sure until everything comes out. But I think I actually figured out what's going on. And if I say it now and this comes out in like a week, remember you heard it here first. So what I started noticing, because when you think nuclear, people are trying to exaggerate and say nuclear bombs, what's the craziest thing that Trump could possibly have? It would be like nuclear weapons. You know what I'm saying? Like nuclear codes, nuclear weapons. He's got the codes. People's heads go to the craziest thing possible because, that just makes the best story. And then it makes Trump look so bad. But nuclear can also be nuclear energy, right? So if you read Trump's response, which I'm going to do, he says nuclear weapons is a hoax because the media says they have nuclear documents, and then they start speculating as if Trump has weapons. So I think I see through the media BS, and I think I know what's happening. We'll see in general, but I think they're taking, this is just my personal guess, I think they're taking probably some sort of, very not that important nuclear document that has something to do with like nuclear energy, and they're making it in the media. This is what they do. They take something tiny and make it like, oh, he's got the codes, nuclear. We don't know. We're not going to say it exactly, but we're going to, speculate that he's got these crazy nuclear, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, weapons. But technically, there is no talk about nuclear weapons. It's more nuclear documents. So that's just my guess, is they're trying to take a tiny nuclear document that's probably not that big of a deal and, use it to ramp up a bunch of media fear about nuclear weapons. That's just my guess, just based on, because me, I always read media headlines. I see through, like the Matrix. I can see through what they're doing. That's my guess. So I'm just going to read a Ben Shapiro tweet this morning because he makes a really great point, regardless whether you like Trump or not, you think he did this or that. Ben Shapiro said, just to get this straight, we're now supposed to believe that the material Trump had stored in his house was nuclear content so sensitive that the FBI waited a year and a half to go get it and use the National Archives as a prop to do so. I think that really sets it up, because it's like, on one hand, say, and please listen to what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be rude, but I had some lady harp at me on Instagram this morning, and she's like, you said Trump definitely did it. And I'm like, I never said that. Listen to my streams yesterday. Does anybody remember me saying, oh, Trump definitely is guilty. I believe everything the media says. Herp derp, herp derp. I never said that. I literally said, here's what the media is saying. Here's what they're saying. Here's what ABC is saying. Here's what Merrick Garland's saying. I personally think he probably got a raw deal, but I also was like, maybe he grabbed something. I don't know. I never said he's 100% guilty. Lock him up. Like, people listen to what I say and then they hear a whole different thing. So please just listen. Listen to what I'm saying, because in general, we'll get through it. All right, so here's the Washington Post article, because I want to read this before I read Trump's response. This is the exclusive. When New York Times and Washington Post get like anonymous sources, we have to preface this with, as people who are American patriots, some people were Bernie supporters, some people were Trump supporters, whatever, just people who pay attention to some extent. We watched the Washington Post and New York Times for years exaggerate and be like, anonymous official, U.S. official says Trump. I studied the whole Russia collusion thing, and like Trump says, it's a joke. So, the fact that we don't trust our intelligence communities or the mainstream media, it's not because we're so terrible and we have trust issues. It's just like, I'm sorry, trust is earned, and the Washington Post has not earned my trust. If you ask me who do I trust, just guessing, Trump or the Washington Post, I would say for sure Trump is right more than the Washington Post. That's just my take, but whatever. All right, let's read the Washington Post. They say, classified documents relating to nuclear weapons. Oh, they do say nuclear weapons. Never mind, I'm wrong. Classified documents relating to nuclear weapons were among the items FBI agents saw in a search of former President Donald Trump's Florida residence on Monday, according to people familiar with the investigation. So they are actually, I guess technically I was wrong at the beginning, because I kept hearing nuclear documents, but they are now alleging in this article that Trump, had nuclear weapons. And who's their source? People familiar with the investigation. Interesting. Experts in classified information, said that the unusual search underscores deep concern about government officials about the types of information that they thought located at Mar-a-Lago and potentially in danger of falling in the wrong hands. The people who described some of the material that agents were seeking spoke on the condition of the anonymity to discuss the ongoing investigation. They did not offer additional details on the information that the agents were seeking, including whether it involved weapons belonging to the United States or some other nation, nor did they say if such documents were recovered as part of the search. Trump's spokesman didn't respond. The Justice Department declined to respond. Material of nuclear weapons is especially sensitive and usually restricted to a small number of government officials. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'm not going to read this whole thing. They're already boring me. Snooze. No, but I guess they are, like, without doing it, they are accusing him of having documents related to nuclear weapons. At first, I kept seeing all these mainstream media journalists say nuclear documents, and it's like, nuclear energy, nuclear weapons, the codes, like some random paper where Trump drew a mushroom cloud. You never know. They always exaggerate. So it's like maybe Trump was bored and he was just drawing a mushroom cloud. He was like, if China doesn't listen, I'll turn their whole city into a mushroom cloud. He's just drawing, and they're like, they kept it, called it classified. And you never know. Could it have been serious? Sure. But it also seems like, I don't know. You saw Merrick Garland in my video yesterday. He has very bizarre energy. He's very angry. He reminds me of somebody, Merrick Garland. God bless you, because if you're watching this, I'm not trying to get like raided / drone strike, so calm down, dude. Merrick Garland, he just seems like he's steaming on the inside. If you've ever watched like an old cartoon where they're steaming and the steam goes and it pours out their ears, that's like Merrick Garland. He just looks so angry. And it's like, bro, when you're the attorney general, you're trying to be calm. You know what I'm saying? I'm like a judge level attorney type guy. Like, listen, I'm smooth as a sailor. This is just what I do. I'm bipartisan. You know what I'm saying? I just got to lay the law down. You don't want to look like the Arthur meme where he's got his fist clenched. He's like, like I felt like his energy inside was like, that's how I feel when AOC talks. She's like, and her eyes are like, like she's like a cartoon, like just very, and like Rochelle Walensky, same with the CDC. I'm not saying right-wingers are perfect, because Trump put a lot of sneaks in office too, but like these left-wing people just creep me out because they're like bugging out of their own skin. It just feels like their soul is on the inside just screaming, like as they're talking, their soul's on the inside being like, help me. And then they're like, I can't give you more about this report, but we're doing a fair and equal job about Donald Trump, and we're doing exactly what we did. And he said, I'm like, bro, you're not doing a good job convincing me. You're talking to somebody that, accordingly, allegedly, reportedly to many of my followers, criticizes Trump too much. I might be able to believe you if you don't act that crazy. You know what I'm saying? I might actually be like, maybe you are telling the truth. But when your soul's like ripping out of your skin and you look like you're just like angry on the inside, it just kind of creeps me out. Speaking of which, Donald Trump did respond to this Washington news report, and I feel like I should try to read it in his voice if I can, so it's more accurate. Donald Trump said on Truth Social, nuclear weapons issue is a hoax, just like Russia was a hoax. 2 impeachments were a hoax. The Mueller investigation was a hoax, and much more. Same sleazy people involved. Why wouldn't the FBI allow inspection of the areas of Mar-a-Lago with our lawyers or others present? Made them wait outside in the heat. Wouldn't even let them get close. Said, absolutely not, all caps. Planting information, anyone? Reminds me of Christopher Steele dossier. So Donald Trump is now accusing them of planting information. Okay, this is just getting much more interesting. So they're accusing him of nuclear documents / possibly nuclear weapons. He's accusing them of planting information. And he even said that on Truth, he said that they like raided Melania's closet and didn't clean it up. And this is what I have to say before we go on to the COVID stuff. As somebody who, I'm not like super obsessed either way. I could see through and just be as honest as I can. People don't distrust the FBI just because Donald Trump said so or they're being irrational. Like, okay, say this is true. Say you raid somebody's house. Like, do you have to raid their wife's closet and just throw everything on the floor and just leave it there? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the type of stuff sometimes law enforcement does, and it's like they have zero respect. And I don't know that they really did this, but Trump is alleging that. I could see it because I've heard dozens of stories like that. Like, they come through, they're searching for something, they treat you like absolute garbage, even though you didn't commit a crime, and then they just throw it all over the place and then leave your house a mess. Like, is that something that's going to make me be like, oh yeah, they're just doing their job, they just needed to get something, like, just, that doesn't help. And one other thing that doesn't help would be, I would say, like the Jeffrey Epstein situation where, the guards were sleeping, the cameras weren't working, and the FBI seems very unconcerned with that situation. You get what I'm saying? It's like the guards were sleeping, the camera just happened to turn off at one of the highest security surveillance facilities in America for high-level profiled, prisoners, when this guy is possibly the biggest human trafficker in modern history who may be working for foreign countries or, compromising politicians. I mean, the full extent of what Jeffrey Epstein has done can only be speculated on because the media won't really report on it that much. Everybody forgets about it. If you want to be honest, the left wing doesn't seem to care much about Jeffrey Epstein. Like, they're protesting abortion, they're protesting gun rights. They're doing all these big protests, but there's been no big protests for the Jeffrey Epstein situation to come to light. And the right wing, the right wing goes to Trump rallies by the tunes of tens of thousands of people for the vaccine salesman who gave a bunch of money to Pfizer and Moderna. But when it comes to, Jeffrey Epstein, all I'm saying is I'm not blaming either side. I'm just saying there is no big movement to like get this revealed. Nobody cares because the media cycle moves on and people pick their favorite person in the circus and we go on. But it's like, I don't distrust the FBI because, Trump made a mistake and you're righting his wrong. We don't trust them because you don't seem to care about Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. You didn't raid the guards or try to figure out who their probably dozens upon hundreds of clients were. So it's everyone else's fault that people don't trust law enforcement when you guys literally took probably the biggest pedophile / human trafficking ring leader in like the world and you just gave him a softball as if he just mysteriously disappeared because the guards were sleeping. I mean, it's out of a movie. But here's the thing. They don't care because they know they could get away with anything. So it's like, in a normal world, they're like, are you sure the cameras the guards fell asleep? Like, that seems pretty like lame, and they're like, dude, it doesn't matter. You know, a week later they'll be screaming about abortion, they'll be screaming about gun control, the right will be defending Trump. You know, they know we'll just move on to the next topic, and they can get away with it. So in general, it's like people, just to the FBI agents that are probably watching the live stream, I'm sure a lot of FBI agents do good work, like Border Patrol. You know, there are actually FBI agents who do good stuff, for sure. But as a whole, it's like you guys are going to treat Donald Trump like Bin Laden or something, but with Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, you mysteriously don't care. Hunter Biden is like on camera smoking crack. Clifton said you're falling off, bro. It's pretty sad. Well, Clifton, just click the X button, bro. I'm actually doing better than ever. My audience is growing at a rapid rate, and you can't fall off because you've never been on in the first place, so I'm not falling off. But if you think so, bye, Clifton. Take a hike, buddy. Literally take a hike. It's good. It's good for your body. It's good cardio. You can clear your mind, and then you could realize that I'm really doing better than ever, and I'm crushing on every level. But whatever. God bless you, guy. So that's why, you know, a lot of people don't trust the FBI because of the Hunter Biden stuff, Hillary stuff, and probably most importantly, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Before I move on, imagine listening to me, like, just crushing it with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff and being like, oh, Anomaly's talking about Jeffrey Epstein. Oh, he fell off. It's like, dude, I got a better presentation than I had a year ago. It's like, okay, Clifton, you're such a cool guy, man. Dude, cool, bro. Yeah, dude. Loser. All right, let's move on to the next topic. So let me know what you think. I'm probably going to put a few comments on the screen. The Washington Post and mainstream media journalists with anonymous sources, we've heard this story a million times, are accusing Trump of having nuclear documents / possibly maybe nuclear weapons. Donald Trump says it's a hoax and they're lying, and he accuses them of planting information on him, which is pretty crazy. At this point, I don't know what to believe. It just seems like a big circus to me. On one hand, I think they do lie about Trump. On one hand, clearly, I think they're exaggerating. Also, he is kind of goofy sometimes, so maybe he grabbed something, but probably not. I don't know. And for those who are saying, like this lady messaged me this morning, and she's like, you said that Trump was guilty, and you sound like media. I'm like, I sound like media to you, lady. No offense. I sound like media to you because you watch a bunch of like bootlickers who literally just say like generic stuff all the time and never tell you both sides of the story. They don't read the report. They don't give you like, you know, an honest answer where like I could sit here and say Trump's 100% innocent or 100% guilty. I don't know because they haven't even released the information. So if I'm obsessed with Trump, I'm just going to say he's 100% innocent. He probably is, but I'm just being fair and being like, I don't know till the report comes out. I could speculate, but how the hell am I supposed to know? I have my intuition. That I said this yesterday too, and I'm like, maybe he literally grabbed the wrong document or something. I don't know. And she's like, you said he's 100% guilty. I want to go listen to Dan Bongino. And it's like, go cry and listen to Dan Bongino. I'm not knocking Dan Bongino. He does some good work, but it's like people hear one thing. It's like they're so used to just getting like literally echo chamber one-sided information with like no sort of full scope. So I just say like both sides of my opinion, and they hear like they were like, you sound like CNN. It's like, literally, no, I don't. Sometimes I play clips of mainstream media, but it doesn't mean I agree with them. Yesterday I played an FBI agent on ABC, and like the top comment on YouTube was like, oh yeah, there's nothing I trust more than an FBI agent on ABC. And it's like, yeah, I agree with you. It's like, I'm not playing the clip because I believe them. I just want you to know what they're saying, and you can kind of get a gist for what they're doing to Trump by hearing what they're saying. People can't handle it. It's so ridiculous. But yeah, to the guy who said I fell off, I'm funnier than ever. You know, we're crushing on all fronts, and you know, go for a hike. Speaking of hikes and you know, I'm going to hike on to the next topic, which is apparently, mysteriously, on the day everybody's talking about this, the CDC is easing guidelines, which is a big deal. I mean, they all try to act like 2020, 2021 wasn't a big deal. The medical tyranny, the lockdowns, closing beaches, closing gyms, making people fatter, telling people to just suck up and inject as many Pfizer products as they tell you. I mean, I'm not going to say it's the craziest thing in history because there's been worse, but definitely the craziest thing of my lifetime was the COVID-19 reality shift where they literally just sucked up every aspect of our life, and we sat on television waiting for Fauci, Trump, and Dr. Birx to tell us whether they were going to let us out of the house or not, and Gavin Newsom and Phil Murphy. You get what I'm saying. It was crazy, okay? So the fact that all of these guidelines are changing, yet there's this massive news story that isn't going to cover this, is a little weird. I'm not saying it's planned for the slow people that are going to freak out and be like, you know, I get hit from all sides. It's like either it's going to be some right-wing mom who didn't listen to what I said, or it's going to be like, you know, a fact checker. They're like, fact check anomaly says that the nuclear thing was planted and it was a hoax. And I'm like, I said that Trump said it was a hoax. I don't know if it is. And you get what I'm saying. I got to like cover all fronts, because like if it's not like, you know, mom's not listening. We love moms here, by the way. I'm not trying to like badmouth moms. We have a huge community of moms. We have millions of moms all around the world, MAGA moms, libertarian moms. We have some liberal moms that know what time it is. So I have to make that clear, because we love all people here, you know, every race, religion, gender, everything. But we especially love moms and grandmas here. That's just how we roll. So I don't want to get this misconstrued, because there's one mom just yelling at me. So anyway, NPR reported that there's new COVID-19 guidance from the CDC that focuses on individual decisions. Wow. Individual decisions. Who ever thought about that? Those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. Unvaccinated people will have the same guidance as vaccinated people. Wow. Students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus. It's no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. Did you just hear what the CDC is doing, folks? I'm going to read it again. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. And I don't like to rain on anybody's parade, and I don't like to laugh or anything, because it's not funny, and you know, you got to love your neighbor whether they're vaccinated or not. But I knew people, and it's not even like my friends, because they wouldn't do this, but like, I'm not going to say who, but just people in my life, people that live around me, you know what I'm saying, in the community, whatever. When people got the vaccine, a lot of people started acting like vaccinated supremacists, and they're like, I'm vaccinated. I get to take my mask off. I'm better than you. And I'm like, yeah, sure you are. And then like, I loved like 3 weeks later, the CDC was like, you know, she's like, you know, Rochelle Walensky, her eyes are like, wahooga, wahooga. She looks like she looks like Tom and Jerry. But her eyes are bugging out, and she's like, actually, vaccinated people need to put their mask back on. And like, I just was laughing hysterically, because like vaccinated people were like, but I thought I was special. I listened to everything you said. And like, I loved when they made everybody put masks on, because like, you know, they were treating us like garbage. And then all the vaccinated people were walking around like they had a stick up their butt. And they're like, hey, good morning, unvaccinated neighbor. They're like, I get to go everywhere and do everything, and I don't have to get a test. And then like everything comes crumbling down on them. And then and like 3 weeks later, they have a mask back on. They're like, why do I have to put a mask on? I thought I was special. And I'm like, no, lady, you're compliant. They did what you said. You gave Pfizer your business, and now, you know, back on the conveyor belt. You're just another cattle to them, you know. You're like, oh no. They're like, Pfizer shot. They're like, mask back on. Pfizer shot. You're like, I have 4 Pfizer shots. Why is my mask back on? And they're like, did you catch COVID like Biden? And they're like, multiple times. They're like, here, take a Paxlovid. Who owns Paxlovid? Pfizer. So that's 5 Pfizer products now. You're like a Pfizer test dummy. You know what I'm saying? You're like, boing, 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 boing. You know, like, you're fatter now because they didn't let you work out. It's like, you're like, am I healthy now? They're like, here, let me talk to the CEO of Pfizer. Are they healthy yet? And he's like, they're never healthy until I have trillions. It's like, and then the fact checkers come around. Fact check? The Pfizer's the most ethical company ever. Fact check. Pfizer would never do you wrong. It's the greatest thing ever. And then Trump comes along. He's like, okay, I'm fighting the deep state by telling you that this is the greatest human achievement in modern history. I'm the father of the vaccines. I did it. And everyone's like, MAGA. And everyone's like, I don't like abortion. People are like, I like it. And I'm just sitting here and everyone's getting fatter. And I'm like, hello, guys. I think something weird's going on. But anyway, I don't like to laugh in the face of disappointment. But my gosh, was it funny when people who got the vaccine were acting like their shit didn't stink for a month. And then they had to do all the same shit I had to do. In the words of that guy from Simpsons, who was that guy, Nelson? Anyway, unvaccinated people, according to NPR and the CDC, unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. Look at that. All your privileges are gone. They mean nothing. Pfizer got their money. Johnson & Johnson got their money. Moderna got their money. Fauci got his fame. Dr. Birx got a book tour and possibly plastic surgery. You know, Donald Trump is still Donald Trump. Biden got in office. Like, everybody got what they wanted. And you get the idea of knowing that you got the vaccine. I saw this coming at some point, because here's what I'm going to say, and I'm going to watch what I'm saying because they're always trying to like fact check me. If you get a COVID shot, this is the science, this is the data. It's not 100% effective. It never was, although they said it was going to be in trials. Obviously, they lied, or they had bad data, or they were being hopeful. As Rochelle Walensky said, I was just being hopeful when I told... Hopeful? What are you, a cheerleader for Pfizer? You're supposed to be the, unbiased leader of a disease control organization. You're not supposed to be like a cheerleader. You're not hopeful. You're supposed to do science. You know what Fauci talks about? Science. These people are such idiots. It's crazy anybody like buys this stuff. But anyway, if you get a Pfizer shot, a Moderna shot, Johnson & Johnson shot, whatever, all the data, it's not 100% effective, but here's the part. There's a reason they want you to get a booster. The reason they want you to get a booster is because it doesn't last forever. If it lasted forever, there would be no booster. So the whole reason you get a third and fourth booster is because your immunity that is whatever, it wanes over time. So here's how you know that they don't give a crap about the science. When they test you to go into the Comedy Store, or when they give you your special boy privileges for getting the vaccine to go to a concert and you don't have to take a test and you can fly here, no problem, to a foreign country, do they check when you got it? Are they checking that it's up to date? Are they discriminating between 4 booster shots and 3 booster shots? Are they letting you in if you only got 1 shot? Are they letting you in if you got your shot 1.5 years ago? You get what I'm saying? Most of the places that are checking for vaccine passports, they're not checking for any of this stuff. So even according to the data, there's a difference between 1 shot and 2 shots. There's a difference between 2 shots and 4 shots. And there's a difference between getting 2 shots 2 weeks ago and getting 2 shots 1 year ago. These are not the same things scientifically and data-wise. So why have they not been checking? Because they don't care. It's all about compliance and control. And I'm not questioning the science. I'm telling people the science. This is a factual statement. It's not the same getting it 2 years ago as it is getting it now with these shots, or else they wouldn't be giving boosters. So it's like, why people do this stuff, I don't know. But once again, I'm going to read the guidelines because they're funny. Those exposed to the virus are no longer required to quarantine. Unvaccinated people now have the same guidance as vaccinated people. Da-na-na, da-na-na. You know what I'm saying? I feel real pure blood right now. Students can stay in class after being exposed to the virus. It's no longer recommended to screen those without symptoms. So they're dialing back everything. And, what do you have to show for it if you complied every step of the way? I don't know. I mean, it is what it is, but hopefully people learn the lesson from this, and next time this happens, people don't cave so easily into the medical tyranny and just following, every sort of thing. But whatever. New York Times said, this is quote from the New York Times, and the recommended prevention strategies no longer draw a distinction between people who are up to date on their vaccinations and those who are not, streamlining a complicated set of rules that could be difficult for schools and businesses to navigate. And Taylor Lorenz is just having a meltdown. Taylor Lorenz, the Washington Post journalist. Let's read her meltdown because she is like really freaking out. And this is the sad part because a lot of people bought into the exaggerations, in my opinion. So now that the CDC is like coming back to reality and they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not even it doesn't even make sense scientifically, according to the experts, to oversee your life forever. Anybody with a brain understands. It's so simple. If you're getting a bunch of Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson shots, but obesity's rising, childhood obesity's rising, depression's rising, people are losing money, the economy's collapsing, and people are overdosing at higher rates and more suicidal, and domestic abuse is up. If you weigh all these things, does that make our country healthier? Did we get healthier because they locked us in the house? Obviously not. Who doesn't understand this? I'm not questioning the vaccine right now. Let's just say it's not, but let's just say Albert Bourla was right when he tweeted that the vaccine was going to be 100% effective. It's not, but let's just say it is. There's still going to be collateral damage to lockdowns, business closures, closing down gyms, beaches, sports. If you don't even think about all that stuff, you're dumb. But Taylor Lorenz is clearly either dumb or mentally ill, and we don't say that to make fun of her. We feel bad for her here. We don't bully Taylor Lorenz, because Taylor Lorenz, she cries, she's a hypocrite, she gets very hated on by right-wing media, she doesn't understand it because she lacks self-awareness. I'm not joking. I genuinely feel bad for her because I think she's either completely mentally ill or just really dumb. But I think it's more mental illness. And mental illness is not a joke. So pray for her. Be nice to her. Don't bully her. And, Taylor, if you're out there listening, change yourself to change the world. Your attitude, your behavior, your terrible reporting, your double standards, and your hypocrisy is bringing all of this energy towards yourself. And if you want to stop all the hate, you got to stop being so terrible. She responded to NPR and said, literally, what is the plan for high-risk, medically vulnerable, and disabled people? Just let us die as the world marches on? Like, WTF? The same people complaining nonstop about mental health costs of lockdowns, even though we never had full lockdowns, and having to wear masks, are purposely happy to force disabled people to stay locked away forever or keep N95 glued to their face every time they step into public. First of all, that's not true at all. Nobody wants everybody to do that. Like, that's like a literal, oh, you're so for personal freedom. Why do I have to have this glued to my face all the time? So you want the entire world to literally stop operating normally so somebody with immunocompromise can feel comfortable? Like, this is ridiculous. I mean, there's been other illnesses in the past. They're not the same, but do we stop the whole world forever because what? She says, even if you wear N95 everywhere, one-way masking policies leave vulnerable people at risk. So there's a tiny gap in your mask. You have to remove your mask at airport security, take a sip of water. To say nothing I mean, this lady is just so dumb. It's like, it's never, what part of this entire 2 years do you not realize never made sense? It's like, the one thing I wouldn't cave on, and this is why I understand some things I say are unpopular, but I'm trying to challenge the Republican base, because we can sit here and talk about how crazy left-wingers are all the time. There's some good ones, you don't want to write the whole movement off, but I agree with the right wing's analysis on the left wing. It's gotten crazy and weird. But let's self-reflect now, because clearly if our party actually did something, we'd be in a better situation. So it's just like the left. They just complain about us, but they don't look at themselves. That's why they've gotten so terrible. We're starting to get terrible because we don't want to self-reflect either. And it's like, here's the thing. I'm in a conservative area, right? And they're telling me to put a mask on at a restaurant. And I know for a fact that 50 to 90% of this restaurant, if not 100%, nobody thinks that this is real science, because she said there's a gap in your mask. If you're concerned with a gap in a mask and one-way masking, what did you think about Taylor Lorenz when a restaurant would force you to wear a mask to walk to your table, and then you sat down at your table, and then hundreds of people in a restaurant, if not dozens, would take their mask off, and the waiters had to wear a mask, but you didn't wear a mask? There's been one-way masking. There's been nonsensical policies that make literally no sense. Why would I have to wear a mask to walk 15 steps to sit down to take it off? It's the dumbest thing. It's literally like training a dog / testing to see how compliant and pathetic people are. Anytime that was a thing, I wouldn't do it, and I'd watch the whole restaurant do it. Conservatives would do it, Republicans would do it, MAGA people would do it, because they wanted the food in the restaurant. So they said, yeah, I don't agree with it, and I get it. Yeah, just put it on, get your food, sit down, laugh at it. But I'm like, guys, this would all end if people didn't do it. The only reason they've been allowed to kick this out for so long, and I'll tell you what, the reason the CDC is ending this policy is because 30-something% of people are triple vaccinated. You know what I'm saying? A majority of the country doesn't have the booster shot. And as time goes on, they can't just keep testing people for a vaccine they got 2 years ago. If they have 2 and Biden has 4, it's not going to make sense forever. So they dragged it out as long as they could. People didn't listen to all their rules, so they had to cut them down because no one was listening anyway. So the whole way you get around this is compliance. I'm not telling people what to do medically. I'm not trying to push people in a certain direction, but I am just being honest. It's like, I'm just going to be transparent. I'm not telling you to do this, but I've never taken a COVID test. I'm not saying everybody should do what I did, but let's just say everybody did. If nobody took a COVID test, or every Trump supporter never took a COVID test, or everybody who was against medical tyranny never took a COVID test, all of this would have ended a year and a half ago. We wouldn't have had to wait this long in certain areas. Why? Because the whole thing is based off testing. Okay, I'm not saying COVID's the flu. I'm not saying COVID's the common cold, but there's never been something that we've tested this much. There's never been so much testing for anything in my lifetime. So the more you test, the more you find. You know, Biden catches it 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. It's like you're testing every single day. You're going to find it. The more you test, the more cases you are. The more cases you are, the more they justify lockdowns. I mean, if you traced what they did, they said 15 days to slow the spread. Why 15 days to slow the spread? Well, 15 days because we want to prepare hospitals. That was their excuse. Prepare the hospital, build the Javits Center, get a bunch of beds, because this could be really bad and we don't want the hospitals to be overwhelmed. So we just need 15 days, not to stop the spread. They always knew they couldn't stop the spread. They wanted 15 days to slow the spread. Then Donald Trump looked at the chart, fell for the propaganda, was in on it, or just got fooled, whatever, decided to extend the guidance, you know, the guidelines and the phase plans another month. So now there's another month. Now they said they wanted to do that, and then they moved the goalpost. And then they started counting deaths. The reason Donald Trump and Birx and Fauci and the governors moved the goalposts is because of the death count. So they went 15 days to slow the spread because we don't, want to overwhelm the hospitals to there's too many people dying, and we'll go back to normal when that curve goes down. So they went from that to deaths. And then once the deaths started going down, they changed it to cases. Then they started counting cases. Well, yeah, the deaths are down, but now we have more cases. And the more cases you have and the less deaths you have, that means that the death rate is lower. So as that happened, the World Health Organization predicted, I think, a 3.1 or a 3.4 death rate. That was wrong. So the fact that more people were getting it and less people were dying was actually good news. That means the death rate's going down. But now they're not counting the death rate anymore. Now they're counting the case rate. So as soon as they're counting cases, you got to understand the more people who get tested, the more people they find. The more people they find, the more excuses they have to go on. So I'm just saying strategically from a liberty perspective, not a medical perspective. This is just a political game theory fact. If you get tested, you're part of the system, because you get tested 20 times for work, eventually you're going to get tested positive. And here's the thing, these tests were never 100% accurate, even in their own words. So I'm not saying they were this, but you could look up the results of the early tests, say they were 99% accurate. That means that 1 out of every 100 persons is going to get a false positive or possibly a false negative. 1 out of 100 is not that many. I mean, that's a lot of people, because if you're testing millions of people, do the math. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to get a positive test that weren't really positive. And if it was 95% effective, that means that 5 out of every 100 people. So if you test 1 million people, do the math. That's quite a few people. So the point that I'm getting to is with all this testing, so many people said they're for liberty, they're for freedom, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to fake a card. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get it. I'm going to wear my mask. I'm going to watch. I'm going to go into the restaurant and just play the game. It's like this all ended when people stopped playing, and they've admitted on camera. This isn't just me suggesting it. Rochelle Walensky has admitted that certain policies of quarantining were lessened in half because people weren't listening. She said it's not just physical science we're also doing social science. And if you tell people to quarantine for 10 days, but they don't listen to you, then there's no point of doing it. Let's just lower it to 5 days and hope that people listen. It's always been a game of compliance. They told you as the vaccines were rolling out, Rachel Maddow, Rochelle Walensky, Joe Biden, it's all on camera. They told people basically, if you get the shot, you're not going to get the virus. So whether they admit it or not, I don't care. I have them on camera saying it. So millions of people were thinking, well, this is a good way to end the pandemic, because if I get the vaccine, you know what I'm saying, I won't get the virus, and that's a great thing for everybody and for me. I'll end the pandemic. Once that didn't happen, they told people, well, if you get the vaccine, now you don't have to follow the prison rules, the slave rules. You don't have to do what all these serfs do. So then a lot of people, I know more people who got the vaccine because they wanted to travel and go to work and keep their job than I know people who got it for health and science reasons. That's just in my personal circle. I'm not saying nobody got it for health and science reasons, but in my circle, most people I know got it to travel, got it to keep their job, got it so they didn't get harassed. They got it under the guise that if they got it, they were going to have special privileges that I didn't have. And it was true for a month. And then they made you put your mask back on. And then once, now a year and a half later, because 30-something% of the country has triple boosters and people aren't going to get COVID vaccines forever at this point in high rates, not because we're so bad, because their rollout was so piss poor and their strategy to get people vaccinated was intrusive, and their promises at the beginning and their speculations at the beginning rather were so overblown, and everybody has real life data of if they've gotten sick themselves, if they've seen someone else get sick, how many shots they've got, etc. People have reality. I know people in my personal circle, this is not a joke, I know people that get the flu vaccine every single year. They're pro-vaccine, they're pro-pharma, they're total medical industry people that believe in all the science. The person I know that got vaccinated that's like that gets the flu vaccine every year, they don't want the booster, they don't want the fourth shot, and they feel duped. For the first time in their vaccinated history of getting dozens of vaccines, they actually feel duped just based on how it all rolled out, what they were promised, and what they got. So that's what the CDC did, just like with the FBI, where it's like it's everyone else. Hey, listen, I'm willing to say there's bad people out there, but you guys also as agencies have to be accountable for what you're doing because you guys have become tyrannical. The CDC has become tyrannical. I'm not going to question everything they do, but they're not good at their job. And instead of getting better at their job, they try to censor. They try to shut everybody down. You know what I'm saying? Like, imagine if 99% of my comments were like negative. And instead of being like, maybe I'm doing something wrong, I don't have to agree with you, but maybe I'm doing something wrong. Imagine if instead of doing that, I said, I'm just going to eliminate every single comment, literally every single one, and everybody else is wrong. 80% of the population's wrong. They've become tyrannical. So just to wrap it up, that's what they did. And now apparently unvaccinated people will have the same guidance as vaccinated people. And I have a clear conscience because I never told people what to do, but I did tell them the stats. I did tell them the facts. I did tell them about the PrEP Act. I did tell them about how Big Pharma has no liability. And we saw the writing on the wall 2 years ago. Chalk up another one for the quote-unquote conspiracy theorist. You promised you were going to mandate people into oblivion. You promised them special privileges. You promised them better immunity. You promised them goodies. And now when push comes to shove, we're pretty much, at least domestically, in the same boat. But they're still abusing people like Yokovich and immigrants and treating them like garbage, which makes no sense. So hopefully they change their policy on that, because you can't even get into the country right now if you're unvaccinated and you're not a citizen. They are really screwing us over. Isn't that interesting? Now if you're an immigrant and you're vaccinated, it means you're more compliant. You know what I'm saying? And you listen to them to get to the country. Like, imagine the demographic shifts of that, bringing in 100% of people who listen to Big Pharma. I mean, it's been pretty crazy. But God bless you guys. I actually have a podcast I'm about to hop on. So if you follow me on Twitter, check that out. I'll probably post a link. God bless you guys. And I got to run. Appreciate you so much. I'll be back with more reports soon.